I encourage my clients to bake ways to say no into their systems and their packages and to set it up upstream so that in the moment they reduce the number of questions they receive. Rather than get better at saying no, I say get your phone off your desk and have those calls go to Calendly, have a form that screens the prospect. And if they're a fit for a phone call, then you have not a phone call, but a Zoom meeting. And it automatically populates on your calendar. And if they're not a fit, you just kick them off your calendar and send them a very nice, gracious email saying, thank you, you're not a fit.
All right, we have a returning guest for our Modern CPA Success Show today. I'm Tom Waddleton, one of our virtual CFOs at Anders VCFO. My usual co-host is here, Adam Hale. Adam, welcome.
Hey, Tom.
Adam helps us run our VCFO division, and our returning guest, Geraldine Carter. And Geraldine started Geraldine Carter LLC as a business coach 10 years ago. So welcome back.
It's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, with that really short intro, can you give us a little bit better understanding kind of career background and what you brought you to coaching?
So the career is a long and winding one. So if you want to go all the way back a couple of centuries, but let's skip to the end. I started my own business with a friend in 2008, quickly fell into the sort of managing the finances role because I was the one with the engineering background, and right away just got schooled on learning money in a business. It was not a skill that I had, but really enjoyed it. And then fast forward, when I left that company and I went out on my own, I started coaching. There were a lot of folks I came across who didn't understand their financials, had no idea what was going on with their money, and they were too scared to ask their accountant or CPA. So we would just, have coffee and I'd kind of walk them through the basics of a P&L, which was, of course, no big deal for you guys, but for them, it was totally eye-popping. And as I started to work with more and more businesses, some accountants asked me for business related help. And I kind of scratched my head. I thought, wait, why do you guys need help from me? But then as soon as I was kind of invited to look under the hood, I saw, okay, $30,000 worth of AR, sometimes AR that is so big you could buy a house with it, way too many clients, and just working all hours of the day, long nights, weekends, all the rest. And I thought this was a really interesting problem. Like, why is it that ostensibly very smart people who can find their way around a P&L and a balance sheet and talk to business owners all the time? Why is it that their businesses are so heavy to carry? So that's kind of how I got into it. And I just found that this problem is very interesting, imminently solvable. And the people, honestly, are a delight to work with. And their businesses make a meaningful impact in our communities and our ecosystems. So I really enjoy solving this problem of the overworked accountant and CPA because it just pays dividends all across the board.
Wonderful.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess a couple of things in there. Sensibly intelligent. I guess that's a big assumption for us. I mean, not all of us. Tom is, but not myself. But
nice of you.
Do appreciate the compliment. But
anyway, I can.
Yeah, it's great. I am curious. I mean, it has been a while since we've chatted. Like, what is on everybody's mind right now? I mean, I know that you take a pretty agile approach to coaching with some of that stuff. I know, obviously, you have some opinions and prescriptions for some things, but like, what's been the attitude shift over the last couple of years? Has that changed, or is the focus still kind of the same?
So what I see that's changed is that people are much faster. They've ingested a lot of the basic information that I think was new 5 years ago, right? Tiered pricing was not something that heads would nod when you said, hey, let's make tiers and packages. People would be like, what? Why would I do that? Why do I want it? It was that was a hard concept to kind of push through. Getting your prices way, way up was also met with a lot of resistance. It is much less so now. Now people come to the table and they say to me, I know my prices are way too low. I know I need to raise them by a lot, probably a factor of 2 to 4. I never would have heard that 5 years ago. I never would have heard I have twice as many clients as I need. 5 years ago, people would have said, I could probably cut 10 to 15% of my, C&D clients. Not anymore. People are like, I got to cut my client roster in half as a starting point. So I think through all the podcasts that are out there, especially your guys' podcast and all the other ones there's so many more podcasts now in the accounting space than there were. And these concepts and what the prescriptions are for getting your hours down and your revenue up are so much more commonplace that people are showing up already at the 40-yard line instead of like way back at the zero. Or, forgive me for the football analogy. I tried.
It's a good one.
What's football?
So you're saying at least now they're coming where it sounds like you don't have to convince them this is what you want to do, but they are coming and saying, I can't do it by myself. Must be why they're reaching out to you. Is that right?
Yeah. So I like to joke that I'm kind of a last resort, and people will say I was ready to burn it all down. And then I Googled business coach for CPAs and I found you.
Okay.
So they tend to try all the other things, which are obvious and make a bunch of sense. But a lot of the other things, they can work. But if we don't get to the taproot and solve the core aspects of the problem of overworking, it doesn't matter what else you implement if the foundation is crumbling or weak in places. So yes, conceptually, they have a much better idea of what to do and what will work. But when we get down to the nitty gritty of actually implementing it, there are still 1,000 micro decisions to make just in increasing your prices, just in deciding what goes in your packages and doesn't, just in what do I say in the letter to communicate a price increase? Do I send all my price increase letters out in one fell swoop, or do I send them out in batches? And if I send them out in batches, what order do I go in? The clients I want to fire the most or the clients I want to keep the most? And on and on and on. The decisions, that branch is never ending. So being able to talk through what's going on in somebody's firm and just help them make all those tiny little decisions to push the hurdles down just makes it so that they can keep moving forward. Without it, you spin out in all the decision making.
Yeah, and I would assume you, having seen this done before, you can help them with some of those. But then my guess is there's a huge amount of accountability too, right? That when I meet with you, whatever that is, 2 weeks later, something like that, as I'm paying you, I better have done something, or else I realize how obviously that I'm wasting my money.
Yes, and I'm going to cancel our call.
Okay.
I'm teasing. So my work now is more scaled. I used to be only one-on-one, and then over time, because I was finding that I was so commonly saying the same things again and again, and I'd have a call with the client and I'd think to myself, oh my gosh, if you could have only been on the 10 o'clock call, we just talked about this. It would be so useful if you could have been there for that piece of information. I started recording a lot of the most common questions, and then eventually put those into a video course, and then create a group program so that people could learn on their own time asynchronously, and then come to a group call where we went through the questions and everybody would benefit from the Q&A. So the scaled version turned out to provide better results faster than the one-on-one version. So I eventually stopped hosting one-on-one and went only to group. And then now, of course, I have a community where there are 100 EAs, CPAs, and accountants inside who are all working on designing the firm they want to have. And all the content is there, and you come in with your questions anytime you want. And knowing that there's a group there looking out for you. And if you post, I want accountability on this, I've got to get this letter out by Friday, will you guys circle back with me? Is a huge motivator for people to actually get the work done, because they know that there's going to be people who are going to say, hey, did you send out that I'm firing you letter to your client or not? And just naming that you have to do it is a big motivator and helps people actually get the work done. So the combination of having the clarity of what decision do I make, how do I proceed, plus being held accountable to do it really helps people, forgive me, but stop chickening out and actually do the hard things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how the commonalities, because we were much the same way whenever we created our course. It was just like we were literally saying the same 4 things over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then there is just a lot of validation in just hearing other people that are doing it alongside of you go, hey, I was there 3 months ago and yeah, she said this and I went ahead and did it and now it's been working out great. Or, I focus on this type of business because, every man's, one man's trash is another man's treasure, kind of the old theory, with some of the stuff, like I might not like to work in this industry or this size of client, but you would love to. And so it's like being able for people to see sometimes, like, again, we're just not super creative, but we're generally as a profession pretty innovative. So if we can see how somebody else has done it and we can reverse engineer it a little bit, it's helpful. So those groups are probably really good support systems for themselves too. And you got like instant validation for, some of the prescriptions that you are making that can probably apply more broadly to everybody because they can kind of see it working in different shades of what you're saying.
Totally. Yep. Show me what it looks like by somebody who's done it and then I'll believe them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so knowing also that it's not a personal flaw, right? If you're stuck in your firm, so many firm owners operate in a silo alone. And if they can't figure things out, they'll just spin around in their head 5 more times. And then if they can't figure it out, they'll think something's wrong with them. Like somehow they're not smart enough or they're not business savvy enough. Instead of just recognizing that they just haven't been given the piece of information that they need in order to make a decision. And when they see that, they're like, oh, okay, great. It's not about me. I'm not the problem. It's just that I didn't know that thing that other people had found already.
Well, there's also like addressing the wound, right? Like going back and firing those clients. But do you have like a framework or anything that you give people for deciding how to say no? Because in the moment, sometimes that's the hard part, right? So you've been able to peel off some of these DNF clients maybe, but going forward, and obviously as you get bigger, you feel like you can be a little more picky. You're not trying to do anything, but is there like a framework or a methodology to saying, hey, like, what sets you up for the ability to qualify those better?
Yeah. So I encourage my clients to bake ways to say no into their systems and their packages and to set it up upstream so that in the moment they reduce the number of questions they receive where they have to make a split-second decision about, do I say yes or no to this? And often feel put on the spot. And many accountants say to me that they are people pleasers. And before they can even stop themselves, the word yes, of course, I'd be more than happy to, for the low price of, is out of their mouth and then they can't get it back. So in order to address that, instead of, for example, phone rings, prospect, tire kicker wants a whatever done for $400, you feel like the accountant feels like they have to say yes. Rather than get better at saying no, I say, why is there a phone ringing on your desk? Get that thing off there. You shouldn't be, but get your phone off your desk and have those calls go to Calendly, have a form that screens the prospect. And if they're a fit for a phone call, then you have not a phone call, but a Zoom meeting. And it automatically populates on your calendar. And if they're not a fit, you just kick them off your calendar and send them a very nice, gracious email saying, thank you, you're not a fit. So we solve the problem upstream so that the accountant never has to feel in the hot seat to say yes. And if you think of, there are countless ways where you find yourself saying yes to things inadvertently, and then later you regret it, just go upstream and figure out where upstream can I solve this so that I'm not, in air quotes, put in the situation again. It just makes life so much easier because now the system does the work instead of your sort of personal, am I a good human for saying yes to this and having to use your willpower to do the work, which we all know at the end of the day, we're exhausted and we're less disciplined and we say things we wish we hadn't.
I'll take the opposite approach even with that. I mean, one, I love the analogy, like I love the, thinking kind of outside of the box to even just kind of not have that be a problem. But sometimes I think for me, it's more of like ego. There's like, can I do it? Sure. Yes. Should I do it? Probably not. Probably. So I wonder, so I do like, the filter system I think is huge. But then do you also really emphasize whenever they're doing their pricing packages to really hone in and focus on and like figure out a way to, really quickly be able to identify and tell the client like, nope, that doesn't fit my, without being too boxy. You want it to be, you want to be able to paint a little bit outside the lines. Obviously,
Yeah,
everything's
totally.
not going to fit snug in there. But
Yep.
whenever things are clearly out of bounds, it's
Yeah.
maybe easier to go, and you almost have to like know a person, to give those clients to, right?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things in there. One of them is the scope creepy thing, right? At what point when do I say yes to these ad hoc requests in a way that serves the client and serves the relationship, and it's no big deal, and I'm not going to regret it because it totally just ate my margin. And when do I say no because that's a different either project or it's way outside scope, or I could say yes, but we need to adjust the prices because that's a big ask. And being able to discern in the moment, can I even make this call right now? Can I even give this person a clear answer without actually reflecting on it and saying, that's a great question. Let me take that back to my desk. I'll circle back with you next week one way or another, so that you don't feel put on the spot and then, back to making a decision saying yes that you then regret. And then the other piece of it is, like you say, Adam, I think a lot of accountants have something of a desire to rescue people. And some of that is well-intentioned, but some of that is what lands a lot of accountants in hot water, where they're kind of over rescuing and compensating for, the hot mess of books that the client never wanted to pay a bookkeeper for. And now the accountant's like, oh, let me rescue this from your situation. Let me rescue yourself from yourself, instead of saying, listen, go get that cleaned up and come back to us when you take bookkeeping seriously, because we're not here to rescue people. And I think taking that stance takes a bit of time, because there's just the personal side of it, but there's also the vestige of hourly billing. And it used to be that hours made revenue, which was totally false thinking and lunacy to begin with. But saying yes is what got you work, and work got you money if you billed by the hour. So a lot of this is still just a knee-jerk response as a vestige of the belief that saying yes makes money. So we need to undo that thinking as well.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more on any of that stuff. How we tried to help with the scope creep piece, and Tom, you might remember this, is, in our tiered system and our subscription-based billing model, we have like basically the top level is all you can eat. And then the next level down is not. So it was always like, how does Tom, if he's serving the middle tier, not act like because he's used to, he's the top.
Yep.
So we did try to delineate by people, like trying not to put Tom on the bottom tier, but he was serving both the middle and the top tier. So how do I not be Tom in the middle tier whenever I know I'm in the top one? And so what we started to use was terminology like you and I. So like if you're in the top tier, the response would be, well, I'll handle that, and I'm going to get on that, and I'm going to put something together for you for us to look at. But if you were in that middle tier, then the response was, you're still going to consult and give the same advice, except for I'm not telling you what I'm going to do. I'm telling you what you should do. So you should think about doing this, and you might want to do that. And I would, you should put it together this way.
Yeah.
And then basically like kind of wave,
Right. Yeah. So what you're speaking to is delineating your packages by level of support and level of DIY-ness. So bronze is DIY, go do it yourself. There's this thing called Google, go read it, figure it out, right? Like, we're just here to keep you compliant, but we're not doing anything else. And we're exaggerating here for the case of a tax return, which I think a lot of people can relate to. And then in the middle, I'll do it with you. And then at the top, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
You could break that out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But it's just a simple kind of mental model for the level of support you give, so that you know where you stand in the relationship. Am I doing this with you? Am I doing this for you? Are you DIYing this? And if you chose the DIY package, you don't get to email me with your questions and expect a response. You can upgrade to the do it with you package, or the other one, the do it for you package. But no more I'm not going to answer your quick questions.
Yep.
So it's just a really, you can filter. There are lots of different ways that you can filter your clients, but I think that's a really helpful one, especially for people who have tendencies to want to do everything for their clients all the time.
Yeah. I was going to emphasize that one of the other ways that we help people understand the scope is, if you look at our engagement letter, it includes really everything that they could do. And we say not included for the things that we're not doing. And so it might describe, for example, running your payroll for you. And it might say,
Mhm.
even if it says included, it says, here are the things that we don't do, which are things you would typically expect a payroll provider to do. We're not
Mhm.
paying your state taxes, all that kind of stuff. But if it
Mhm.
says not included, the kind where they're like, can you just get in and review my payroll stuff? It makes it really easy for me to go say, let me show you this. Here's the things we can do. And remember, it's not included. I
Yeah.
get it, and we can do a scope change, but it really helps them see like this is what you signed
Yeah.
up for. And I think that was smart
Yeah.
to actually show what's in and what's out.
Yeah. And where the lines are so that there's no question when the ball is out of bounds.
Yeah. The one other upstream thing that we do that I think helps when you mention tire kickers is we will show what the average usual price is of our 3 tiers that are in there. So
Mhm.
if we were to get someone who say, I really want all the things you do, and I think it's only going to cost me like $1,000 a month, they can look and say, oh, that's really expensive. I don't want to work with you. And at one time I can see feeling bad, but the truth is I don't want them to be embarrassed on a call. And I also don't want them to come in expecting me to do something cheap. It just avoids that. They can look and say, these guys aren't the guys for me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you got to filter somewhere. Otherwise, you'll just get completely bogged down.
Mm-hmm.
And which is where a lot of accountants inadvertently end up. And it's okay that they've ended up there. But the way that we shore things up is to really delineate what's inbounds and what's out of bounds.
Yeah.
And the better we get at that, and the better we say, for example, if you define your packages, you've got to police your own packages, right? You can't leave it to the client to know what's inbounds and what's out, and like
Yep.
who pays the payroll taxes and who pays the state taxes and whoever, and like who does all the little aspects of it. They're not going to remember. They can't keep that stuff in their heads. It's all just one big giant bucket of stuff I don't want to touch to them.
Yeah.
So it's up to you, the provider, to make sure that you're kind of the referee and you blow the whistle when it needs to be blown so that they're like, oh, okay, thanks for the reminder. And it doesn't have to be punitive. It just has to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you a hard liner? Like whenever you're coaching folks, are you a hard liner on niching or on having a certain size client? Like, are you pretty bullish on that? Or is it kind of just dealer's choice kind of a thing?
So yes and no. I think
That's not an answer.
Well, I'll give you the yes and the no. It's 2 answers for the price of 1. So the yes answer is I still absolutely believe in the value of niching and the power of niching because you create so much leverage in your business. And all of the clients who I've worked with who have niched, 0 have gone back to being a generalist because they experience the power and the efficiency of being and operating inside a niche. There's just no question. But where I've dialed back some is, especially for the folks who are in their, old like us, 50s and 60s, and they've got a firm and they've been running it for 20, 30 years. These are not folks not all of them are necessarily going to go pick an industry and be the industry expert in interior designers doing 7 figures, interior designers doing 7 figures of top line revenue. There are a lot of folks who have a solid client base and don't want to necessarily niche by industry. They just want to refine the client base that they have. So especially for the folks who are kind of later stage in their career, who have a solid base, but also still work 60 or 80 hours a week during tax season and kind of have that solid base, but it's a little bit messy, is to refine by the services that they offer. So if they're doing tax only for some clients, but not monthly, and they're doing monthly only for clients, but not tax, and then this lane in the middle where they're doing monthly and tax for clients, they're operating across 3 lanes. So usually we'll lop off one lane because there's an obvious one that they prefer to lop off. It's either the tax only people or it's the monthly only. I don't want to do your bookkeeping if I'm not doing your tax. And they usually know which lane they want to lop off. And then once we do that and they kind of like recalibrate and rebalance, oftentimes there's a second lane that they want to lop off. So then they're just existing in one lane. I'm either doing tax and tax planning only. I don't do accounting, or I do monthly only and I don't do any tax, or I do your monthly and I do your tax and I do both and not one or the other. And that helps them really dial in their systems. And then they're working increasingly with clients who are much more like each other, but they don't necessarily dive into an industry and become an industry expert and drive profitability in their clients' businesses. So So that's my yes and no answer. Yes, if you want a niche, it's so worth it. If you're like, I'm 55, I don't want to work that hard anymore. I don't want to pick an industry. I think I just want to pick a lane and be happy in my lane. That also works really well too.
Okay, so the lane is the differentiator. What about so I guess you kind of answered the question there because it just depends on what lane they choose. But what about like a client size? So me and my business partner, we'd always kind of argue. Like he's like, "Hey, I only want $80,000 clients. Like you can't make money on a $15,000 a year client." I'm like, "No, I can show you plenty of them that." Yeah. Now, granted, you're herding cats, you got more relationships, but you're also less exposed whenever you lose a client. I can show you very profitable firms that are doing $10,000 to $15,000 average client.
Yep.
Of course, we're not talking about $2,000 or $3,000, but do you have do you diagnose that and then kind of set targets around that? I mean, is that part of the strategy whenever you're working with your clients?
So most people come to me knowing where their sweet spot is in terms of revenue band. And the short answer to your question is, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of picking a revenue band for the same reason as it makes sense to niche by industry. You're sort of niching by revenue band. You get to know the problems of people in the revenue band, which are different, right? They vary widely. A person who's at 250K is really different than a $2.5 million business. In QuickBooks, it's just a matter of a zero, but the business challenges that person brings to you, the conversations are entirely different. So most of the people that I work with, they have a sense already of where the band is that they want to work in. They just need permission and know-how to be able to narrow that down and get more clients like that, because really their challenge is marketing, right? If I go narrow, how am I going to get more clients? I'm already limited. It's already hard to get clients. It's already hard enough to get clients as it is. Now you're telling me I got to narrow the range of clients I can say yes to. Help, right? But what they don't recognize is that is a problem that is solved by marketing, and marketing is a massively powerful engine in one's business. It's just that most accountants don't want to market. They don't think they should have to market. They've always gotten business by referral. They think marketing is a waste of money. So we've got to overcome all this marketing nonsense that they believe and show them that, in fact, you already do know how to market. If you have a 500K business, you've been marketing. And we can show you how to systematize your marketing so that you attract the kinds of clients that fit really nicely into the narrow bands that you're looking for.
Yeah. So you also help out on the marketing side. I know that's a weak spot for most people that go through our course. They'd be like, cool, now I know, because they would always ask like chicken or the egg, right? Like, do I get the client first or do I figure out how to do the system first? And I'm like, well, it's really hard to sell what you don't know. So to me, if you're asking my opinion, it's like really understand like what you want your pricing package to look like, who you want to serve, how you want to serve them, what their problems are, how you're going to prescribe solutions. Then, it's easy to sell, which is different than marketing. They still have to get the, because then they would always come back to us and go, now, how do I get the opportunity to sell?
Yeah.
And so you do help with that as well.
So I'm not a marketing pro. It is not my primary lane. For a long time, I thought marketing was nonsense until I saw how powerful it was, and then I came around. So it's not my primary lane. I am a problem solver at heart, but because I've had to learn marketing in my own business to make it go, I know enough of the basics to get a person started and to get them going and to get them feeling confident that they know how to do this, they know what to say, they know where to say it. And once they need higher power marketing, then they can go off and find another pro to pay who's like a legit marketer. But in my experience, at least for the clients who are at the level that I work at, even basic level marketing is a massive improvement over what they were doing previously, which is a website from the 1940s that says we're a full service accounting shop and we do all kinds of things for all kinds of people. Just come on in. As long as you have a heartbeat and a checkbook, we'll take your money and we'll do work for you. So just getting a price package, who you work with, what you sell, what price you sell it at, what problems you solve on your website in super plain English, which is now infinitely easy with ChatGPT. It just puts you miles ahead of where you were previously, just even a few months ago. So I think the take home there for accountants and CPAs who are listening is marketing has gotten so much easier than it was, even just probably 3 years ago or even 2 years ago, given the tools that are out there now. So I'd encourage folks to take a whack at it and be a lot less intimidated by it than you might be being.
Yeah. Even you're really speaking my language, even with some of our marketing agencies, and that is a niche digital agencies that we work at. Their difficulty sometimes describing what they actually sell is surprising. It's a little bit like the cobbler's kids that doesn't have
Totally.
shoes.
Sure.
That you're just like, you're telling me what you're doing, but you just use like 9 sentences and I'm lost and I've been working with you for the last year. So just hearing you say like, we work with these people. And then if you can align your website to say that, if someone wants to go, and I would compliment you on your website, it's very much in sort of a story approach and some good questions that just look very much like the kind that if you're an individual owner, you're like, yes, that's what I am working too hard. I am feeling burned out. I don't, all these things that help say, okay, that's what she does. So I agree. It's, in some cases, I know it's not easy to do, but it's not like you have to hire an ad agency and spend huge amounts of money to do that part.
Yeah, please don't hire an ad agency and spend huge amounts of money until you can give a lead magnet away for free. And this is my litmus test. This is my litmus test for a lot of my clients. Can you give a lead magnet away for free on the internet? And if you can't, we've got problems. We have solvable problems, but either your lead magnet isn't interesting, or it's not valuable, or you're putting it in places where your client is not, right? Like if you work with carpenters, they're probably not on LinkedIn, so don't put it on LinkedIn. Put it on YouTube because they're looking for ways, like they watch wood whittling YouTube videos for fun, right? So put it in front of them there. And if they're not downloading it, does the technology work? If they're not downloading it, is the title interesting or the graphics appealing? Or is this audience even in existence? Are they a real audience or not? Is the audience too broad? So if you can't give a lead magnet away for free, there's no amount of money that's going to make people want your lead magnet if it's not valuable, not interesting, or not worth downloading, or the technology behind the thing is broken. So before you spend a dime on marketing, figure out how to give a lead magnet away for free. And then once you can give it away for free and people want it because it's valuable, then put money behind it. But most people just skip right past that and they just go right to organic social. And I don't need to tell you that doesn't really go very far.
They don't have anything to amplify.
And that's just kind of like randomly posted. It's like really spaghetti at the wall messaging, and it's not strategic and there's nothing to measure. So it's no wonder it doesn't work. But we all start there, and that's kind of a necessary, it's like a rite of passage that you got to go through to figure out, okay, how do I get more strategic about this?
So I know we kind of covered like burnout and focus, niche, and then we talked a little bit about pricing and that kind of stuff. What about, I don't know, Tom, maybe you have some insight here that maybe cued the question up a little bit better, but it seems like advisory was always really difficult for people to really truly grasp and understand. Like they get that it's like giving advice, like, but they didn't really know how to package it or do it intentionally with any kind of structure around it. Tom, are we still kind of seeing the same thing where people are a little confused of like, okay, now tell me what to say, as opposed to like, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there, seeing if that's still kind of a thing in the marketplace that people are doing having issues with.
When we're coaching accounting firms, that's definitely coming up, where I think often the way they present themselves to me is I'm worried about going in and having to be, the Yoda in the room that I can answer any question, anything that comes at them. And so we'll describe things like our pillars around, do you have the right amount of cash? Is your gross profit at the right level? Are you making those kind of investments? What's your sales pipeline look like? Some of these core tenets where we're coming back to those saying, I've got to look at those basics in your business and I know how to consult around those. And I can try to answer sort of any question, but I'm going to make sure I focus on those pieces and not just walk in and say, I can answer anything. So yes, I think they are worried. And I think there's a lot of they don't believe that they're as smart as they are. They've got years of experience and they're coming in saying, who am I to give advice? And you're like, when it comes to accounting and businesses and knowing numbers, you're way better than you probably think you are.
Well, but I mean, even more than that though. Yeah. Cause I think the part that maybe confuses them, and I do agree, imposter syndrome's a thing. So we're always like preaching that, but you do have to kind of put on like a business consulting hat to a degree.
Yes.
But a lot of these folks that you're working with, Geraldine, are probably entrepreneurs and business owners themselves, right? So they already got a leg up on bigger firms where the person isn't used to starting their own business, doing those kind of things. So they just kind of talk to them person by person. But how do you help them overcome that? Is there like kind of tips and tricks that you go through? I mean, I'm not asking for like it, I don't know. Is there a silver bullet? Like, how do you work through that kind of a problem?
So the problem that I'm helping my clients solve is that they're working way too many hours for too low prices, right? And they're effectively selling gold service at bronze prices. So, and most of the folks that I work with have established firms because they're working too many hours. So I don't have the newer stage business owners because, by definition, by the nature of the problem that I solve, people have been at it usually for a decade, if not more. So they know their stuff inside and out. And really their challenge is, how do I put this in a package with a dollar price on it and sell it with a straight face? So our job is really around, in working together, it's really around what are your packages going. It's actually, if we back up, it's what problems do your clients have? And back to your point, Tom, do you have enough cash? Do you understand what's happening with your money? Do you have enough runway? Are you going to make payroll? What's the health of your business by these kind of standard metrics that I know? So we figure out, okay, if that's what your clients need, then what do you, dear accountant, need to do on the work side and on the delivery side in order to help your client address those challenges and solve those problems? And that's how we come at designing the package, is from what is the problem, what's the solution, and then go from there. And then usually the variations on it are a variation of what's the quality of the experience, what's the level of service, how fast do you get responses to calls and emails, what's the turnaround time, how soon in the month you get financial, stuff like that. So we vary the soft stuff so that the expertise, so that they don't feel like they have to withhold their expertise because it's not being paid for because they're not at the right level. It's like, no, everybody gets the expertise. I can't help myself but share my expertise, right? Is what the accountant, they're like, that's half the time that's the regret, is like, I just gave that guy $50,000 worth of advice in 15 minutes and now I don't know how to bill for it. And the horse has left the barn. I can't send him an invoice now. So we frame the packages so that the expertise is there no matter what. And then it's just a variation on the quality of the service. And then once we do that and we have prices for that make sense, we say, okay, how many of these do we need to sell at this price? And how many hours does that take to deliver? And does that fit inside the work week that you want? And is that the life you want? And is that the business you want? And are those the clients that you like? So we're coming at this problem of like an overgrown, forgive me, mess of an accounting firm, sort of like your clients show up to you with a hot mess of QuickBooks and you're like, no big deal, I got this. I see it all the time. It's super easy. We just got to reorganize it. So we're approaching it from this, how do we reshape your firm and your clients and your prices and your packages so that you actually enjoy your firm again instead of want to set the whole thing on fire? So it's kind of a different approach than just like, what should the right packages be? It's more like, how do we solve these packages in the context of the entire firm?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Are you finding that I could use some help with this? Because I think we're still an outlier here. In fact, I know we are. And it'd be nice if just the industry changed completely, because it did a long time ago, like fixed fee pricing, we were an outlier. Virtual, we were an outlier. ACHing people's account, we were an outlier. But what we still do that's a little bit of an outlier is we ACH our clients weekly. And I have yet to run into a firm that does it weekly. Now, I get it. Like, we take some clients that are standalone tax returns that we think are going to end up being bigger clients. We put them in like a $5,000 or a $10,000 package, and we still charge them weekly. I know it seems bananas, but we do, just because it's set it and forget it. Like, we always joke Monday's our favorite day of the week, because that's whenever we get all of our deposits. But it's the pitch is easy to clients. Like, for us, we don't lock people into a contract for a year or 2 years or anything like that. It's super flexible. We can flex up or down with you based on business needs. And so what I usually tell them is the reason why we charge weekly as opposed to monthly is because if you want to next week add bill pay or subtract this or add that, I could just flip the switch. I don't have to worry about prorating bills. I don't have to do any of those kind of things. So, I mean, it just makes life a lot easier. So one, are people still battling with AR, which seems silly? Like everybody said, if you're doing fixed fee billing and you're not ACHing, like no reason why. It should always be beginning of the month, not the end of the month. And it should be automatic payment. But then the other question is like, have you seen anybody else doing it weekly?
Yeah. Okay. So is anybody still battling AR? Yes, there are people who are still battling AR. I do think fixed price and pay up front is much more commonplace, right? Same place as we were earlier in this conversation, where these things are so much more normal now. Same with scheduled tax prep, right? Pick your week for tax prep. It's no more first in, first out. Scheduled tax prep is becoming much more common. People show up to me saying, I want to do this, help me do it. I'm no longer having to make the case for it, right? So similar with AR, I think what we're seeing is new clients come in, pay up front, ACH, et cetera. What we're still seeing is the legacy clients. How do I get my legacy clients who are in this vestige system? How do I change them over so that they're like my new clients who come in? And that's just a progressive thing. And we just go, client by client, solve it one client at a time. And then once they recognize the pattern of how do I move this client over to paid up front, then they can do like the rest in one fell swoop. So there's that when it comes to ACH. And there are always people who are still billing hourly and embarrassed to admit it. And that's totally fine. I have no judgment about people who are still billing hourly. I just want to help them get off it because of all the possible ways to price. It's the least profitable one. And accountants have cottoned onto the concept of profitability. So let's get you off hourly as soon as we can. No harm, no foul, right? So then with weekly and hourly billing, you're using this word outlier, but I would replace it with thought leader. You guys were well ahead of the curve with the things that you mentioned. I haven't seen anybody else bill, ACH weekly. I get your reasoning. It makes perfect sense. For my folks, we have so many fish to fry that that's a level of nuance that I don't ask them to employ yet. And it hasn't been a problem really for anybody. Nobody's said to me, or at least not in droves, if a client switches horses midstream, mid-month, how do I then change their billing? So in the grand scheme of things, yes, there's surely some fine tuning that could be adopted there if they wanted to. But in the grand scheme of things, we've got big problems with pricing, with legacy pricing, with packages, with hours, capacity, disengaging, unruly clients who are still on the airplane that need to be gotten off, and all the rest. So for the time being, we stay high level until those things are solved. So then we can fine tune.
You'll like this though, Geraldine. So that's an excuse a little bit, right? That's a justification. But it is also nice from an administrative standpoint. But I will also tell you, and this is unintentional, is like if I told you that your fee was $500 a week, you would tell me it's how much per month.
Yeah.
99.9% of the time, people will tell you it's $2,000 a month.
Totally. Right.
It's not really $2,000 a month, but sure. You know what I mean?
You're squeaking an extra 2 weeks out of the year.
Yeah. So it's but like mental, and we show people the weekly and the annual price. So it's not like two total differences, but they're always just like, they still just kind of go, okay, so it's $2,000 a month. And it's like,
right. Mentally, they anchor lower than in actuality.
Yes. It's like sometimes.
Well, that's fine. I mean, that's fair game.
Yeah.
But
and if they're doing hourly, like we'll occasionally do stuff hourly, which I know makes people gasp sometimes. But for me, I'm like, I'll do it hourly. I don't care. Like if it's something that I don't know what's going to look like, but I'm going to charge a $10,000 retainer at the beginning of the engagement. I'm not chasing you for nothing. And I tell them in our engagement letter that it's going to be $10,000 day one. And then if you get below $2,500, I'm going to have a conversation with you and let you know what I think it is to complete, or I'm going to recharge for 10 grand and we're going to keep running. Like, so I'm never, ever in the red whenever it comes to like, I'm never chasing anybody for money.
Sure. And it's great to never chase anybody for money. But the arguing point, let me give you an example. I had a client who was billing hourly for equity compensation tax prep. And when she billed it hourly, she was billing $1,500 for that tax prep. And now her minimum prices are $15,000. So that's the advantage of learning how to price things, is you have no idea just how much of the money you're leaving on the table. The advantage is that you get your costs covered, but you're just missing any, like, who knows how much upside there is if you figure out a way to price it to capture the value.
Oh yeah. No, these are only ones that I know are going to be a disaster. But yeah, we fix bill 95% of everything that we do, probably greater than that. It's just every once in a while somebody's like a bit of a disaster, but
yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a super fun site and you're like, I don't know. Here, let me just add this point, because I think a lot of people get stuck on this. I don't know how long it's going to take me, therefore I can't price it. Yeah. And you don't need to know how long it's going to take you to price it. You only need to know how long it's going to take you to establish how much it's going to cost you to do the work. And your cost has nothing to do with your price. So you can price it wherever the heck you want. The problem for the client is that they have no idea what the price is going to be in advance. And that's unfair to them, because they may or may not, depending on this case, if they're already an existing client and it's cleanup work that needs to happen, they're probably not going to shop it out somewhere else. But it's unfair to the client to not have a price. It's sort of like, well, if you're to have your roof redone, pricing by the shingle, and your client's like, well, is it going to cost me 10 grand or 100 grand to get my roof redone? If you're pricing by the shingle, your client has no clue. And if it ends up being 100 grand and they only had 10 grand in their pocket, they're going to be really upset about that. And you're probably going to end up negotiating down the bill, which stinks for them. They might have, had a cousin who's a teenager who could have done it for a price that was acceptable to them. Who knows? And you're going to end up eating some of the price too. So it's not a great arrangement for either one. And, like if you're only doing 5% of your roster hourly billing, I'm not going to come after my clients for that. But there's such a huge missed opportunity, not to mention it's not systematizable work. We're missing out on the leverage of systematizable work. So we could go on about all the drawbacks of hourly billing, but that would be like 5 more shows.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a great example, though, that you give. It's probably a good one to close on, to say, okay, we've talked all the different parts that you do. And then I think a really good, realistic example to kind of say, here's what the impact of that could be. This is so good. As I mentioned to you, I think it was actually before we had started the show, just so many things you're teaching are very much aligned with what we do. And what I like is I know you work with pretty small firms. It's really cool to see that it also works for a little bit larger firms. It's just a wave that is changing, and people need to, it sounds like they're getting to, yes, I know I need to do it. You're helping them with, here's how you do it, and let's make it actually happen.
I mean, listen, the laws of business gravity have always been the same. It's just that the accounting world was over here in La La Land trying to deny that gravity applied to them.
Yes.
And now they're coming around. They're like, oh, business gravity also turns out applies to me. Not only does it apply to me, but also works for me, right? And it doesn't matter if your firm is 250K or 500K or 2.5 million or 5 million or 50 million. The laws of business gravity apply to you nonetheless, like regardless. So take heart. You're not a special snowflake that's broken somehow and the rules don't apply to you. They do. Just got to figure out how to get them to work inside your firm so that you're really capturing the value and the expertise that you've amassed and worked so hard to develop over the years, because you deserve it. Not you, Tom and Adam, though obviously you deserve it. Accountants deserve to be well compensated for the value that they bring to their clients. And they can absolutely have a firm that they love with clients from the top to the bottom of their roster that they enjoy, and work the hours that they want to work so they can go to the kids' birthday parties and all the events and not be missing life.
Very well said.
Yeah. That's great close.
Yeah. Geraldine, thank you very much for this time with you. This was excellent today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's always great to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you as well.